मैं हमारे ऑर्गेनाइजिंग टीम की तरफ से, सभी पार्टिसिपेंट की तरफ से सर का हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं, अभिनंदन करता हूं। उनके लेक्चर शुरू होने से पहले मैं कुछ उनका संक्षिप्त परिचय आपके सामने रखना चाहता हूं। प्रोफेसर कृष्णा सिंह सर इस समय इंदिरा गांधी नेशनल ट्राइबल यूनिवर्सिटी के इंग्लिश डिपार्टमेंट के हेड हैं। इसके पहले वो फैकल्टी ऑफ ह्यूमैनिटीज एंड फिलोलॉजी के डीन रह चुके हैं। यूनिवर्सिटी के एसी बहुत सारे कमेटी में काम कर चुके हैं। यूनिवर्सिटी के जो भी एकेडमिक कार्य है उसमें सर का योगदान बहुत अधिक है। हमारे साथ जुड़े हुए हैं। सर ने बहुत सारी बुक्स लिखी हुई हैं, मोर देन 100 रिसर्च पेपर्स उनके पब्लिश हैं इंटरनेशनल और नेशनल जर्नल्स में। तो आज हम सर का स्वागत करते हैं अपने इस एफडीपी प्रोग्राम में। सर, ओवर टू यू कृष्णा सर।
Good afternoon to one and all present here. First, I would like to thank Professor Rakesh Singh, Director of the Faculty Program, congratulate the entire team, apart from Professor Rakesh Singh, Director of the program. The team consisting Dr. Lalit Kumar Mishra, Dr. Devendra Singh, and Dr. Prashant. The topic that has been given to me for interaction, that is plagiarism and academic integrity, which is quite relevant at the present time because all of us are either the students, the faculty members, even the senior professors are always engaged in any kind of research work, either writing research paper, dissertation, guiding PhD, as well as term papers at different levels. That's why my focus will be on plagiarism and academic integrity. Whether my slide is visible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
मेरा फोटो कहाँ है? आपके फोटो हमको देखिए. Okay. Now, first, I would like to outline the broad areas under scrutiny. It's because these are the important areas of research. Unless we understand these areas, it will be quite difficult for a researcher to move ahead. Because unintentional kind of plagiarism is quite natural, because when we start research work, we have certain limitations. We don't have the maturity how to explore the facts and how to document them, how to furnish as per standard formats, either APA or MLA. That's why these broad areas include what is research, aims and objects of research, tools and materials of research, academic honesty, Shakespearean plays and sonnet. This is quite new for all of you. This is a very interesting part. Plagiarism, academic dishonesty or a crime, kinds of plagiarism, what to cite or credit or what not to cite, why to cite, why is it important, credit sources from all formats of media, how to avoid plagiarism, do's before starting a research work, preparing a research diary or note-taking system, why we plagiarize, anti-plagiarism policies, and plagiarism testing tools and softwares, as well as their limitations. These are the broad areas I would like to sum up so that we can understand what is plagiarism, what is academic integrity, and how these broad areas exactly tempt the young scholars to go for unintentional plagiarism. The very first thing is understanding of research. What is research? I have picked up few definitions. The purpose is just to know what is research work, so that those points which involve in the research, we can go further. New Standard Encyclopedia defines research that it is a systematic investigation for the purpose of gaining new knowledge. Oxford English Dictionary, again on the same line, that research is a search or investigation directed to the discovery of some facts by careful consideration or study of a subject, a course of critical or scientific inquiry. Similarly, the Webster International Dictionary continues the same line, that it is a studious inquiry or examination, especially critical and exhaustive investigation or experimentation. And it has the aim, that is discovery of new facts and their correct information, the revision of accepted conclusions, theories, or laws in the light of newly discovered facts, or the practical application of such new or revised conclusions, theories of the law. And out of these three important definitions, there are two major areas of research or the component research. The first is the exploration, which may also call investigation, or that's the analysis, fresh interpretation of the fact. And thereafter, the second stage that comes is the documentation. Documentation or the communication, whatever we have investigated, what is or what are our findings, data analysis, the result, the outcome, they have to be documented in the proper way, because our entire research should be user friendly. Our MLA as well as APA, they are working continuously every year, that our presentation, that means our documentation, our thesis, dissertation, all they are the academic reports. This should be documented in such a way that the users can access very easily and get the point what we want to share. And next point is the aims and objectives of research. First is the advancement of knowledge, because our research is an exploration of the fact, or the invention or the discovery of the facts, fresh interpretation, or new analysis or fresh perspective on the topic that is already either known or unknown. The first objective of research is advancement knowledge. Our research should be helpful to advance the knowledge of a domain of the subject that we are concerned. If we are honest in our research, it's quite natural. We will add a new kind of knowledge, new perspectives. Second is broadening the mind and shaping the critical insight of the researcher, creation of a genuine and intelligent interest in literature, inculcation of the sense that researcher is a member of a collaborative community, assimilation of the past and present. This when we come to this point, we go for a review of literature. That means what we are studying right now, what is the source material available to us, and what has already been written on the topic. We try to make the fusion of past and present, because in research the most important thing is that is to be investigated is our original argument, our point of view, our title, our proposition, our topic. These are the different words we use for or the research problem. With the help of secondary sources, we try to review and endorse what we are trying to establish. The discovery of the new facts, or the fresh interpretation, or the analysis of the known facts. For example, Ptolemy's theory that in the solar system, Earth is the center and the sun revolves around it. Later on, with the invention of telescope by Galileo and Copernicus, established and refuted the theory, and the fresh interpretation out of new interpretation out of the discovery that was established. Even when we come to literature, we have a group of poets better known as metaphysical poets. They were quite unknown to the modern readers. It was T.S. Eliot's very famous critical essay entitled Metaphysical Poets. A new light was thrown on the important poetical qualities of these poets, and he just explored one very important feature that's very significant to establish them as a modern poet, that is unification of sensibility. That he finds there is the fusion of sense and sound, very artistic fusion of sense and sound in the poetry. This was a quite fresh interpretation about the facts related to the metaphysical poets, and they were established very important poets in the modern time. This exactly is the objective of research. And third, next part is materials and tools of research. As in science, the objects of the nature or the phenomena of the nature and their properties, these are the important materials of research. As far as the tools are concerned, basic tools are observation and experimentation, which is common to literature and social science also. And there are specific tools at the science. They use scientific instrument as well as they carry out research work and experiment in the labs, which is very specific to them. Whereas in literature, as far as the manuscripts are, materials are concerned, we have the manuscripts. If it is authors' handwriting, that is called a holograph, or by others, printed books in the form of texts, letters, diaries, journals, memoirs, reviews, critical comments, criticism by the authors, and now the e-text is also included. That cannot be dissociated. Editions, whether different editions of the books, different editions of the journals also. At the time of Shakespeare, also in the 16th century, we have the different good and the bad, or better say, pirated and the standard editions of the writings, known as good quartos, which were published by the company, and bad quartos published by the, or they were the pirated editions. The paper, quality of the paper, kind of the paper, as well as the ink, ballpoint pen, and all these are also the materials. As far as the tools in literature are concerned, in literature, basic tools are observation and experimentation, and the specific tools are the bibliography, note-taking system, scientific tools, and the textual analysis. That's why in literature, when we come to the point that's called criticism, earlier it was called an art, now it's called a science, because we, in criticism, in the analysis, in the research in literature, we also adopt scientific tools that is called observation and experimentation. We make very close textual analysis and the scrutiny so that we can have better results. Now, the most important point that is focal for our discussion is academic honesty and integrity. That is the important areas are honesty, trust, fairness, respect, and responsibility. Unless we are honest and sincere in our study, in our research work, the results can never be fruitful. We will never have, if we are indulging into any kind of dishonesty, cheating, and forge documents we are using, and we will lose trust of the readers. And that kind of presentation, that kind of report will be, or research will be highly skeptical, doubtful. And if there is no fairness, respect for what has already been written, other scholars, how they have commented, how they have investigated the topic that we have undertaken right now, as well as we must have the responsibility towards the academia, towards the society, towards the job that we have undertaken. For example, here it is a research work. We have to conduct research work very honestly, with full trust, fairly, in a very objective manner, respecting the earlier research, as well as a great responsibility towards the profession that we have already taken. Now, how the honesty and objectivity can be maintained, it is because of, if we follow very strictly the APA, that is American Psychological Association, published by Washington, D.C. in 2020, which is a standard format for social and behavioral sciences, natural sciences, nursing, communication, education, business, engineering, as well as MLA, Modern Language Association, 8th edition, which is the latest one, that is published by Modern Language Association of America, New York, 2016, and it is a standard format for language and literature, which exactly is a key component of academic integrity. Otherwise, we often indulge into unintentional plagiarism. And these exactly two books help in formatting as well as reference. I have picked up this example deliberately. Shakespearean plays and sonnets, the question of academic integrity or greatest plagiarist. Shakespeare in literature is called a greatest plagiarist. This is a very different kind of connotation. This is a very positive assertion about Shakespeare. As you know, plagiarism is a very negative derogatory term, but in the case of Shakespeare, it has a very different and very positive meaning. Now, why I have picked up this example? Because Shakespearean plays, 37 in number, sonnets, this is a poem of 14 lines, 154 in numbers. They are very much built upon, constructed upon the sources which have been borrowed from the myths, the legends, history, either the Roman or the British history, contemporary events, political ideology, either colonialism, imperialism, or theory of tragedy, comedy, pastoral romance, catharsis, Oedipal instinct, and many more, which were already in practice. And Shakespeare never hesitated to get hints, suggestion, or borrow the sources, either the plot, the character, the narrative, or the structural design of the play text. And he has also used the blank verse, which was used earlier by his producer, that is Christopher Marlowe. And the second is the sonnet. Sonnet exactly is a short poem of 14 lines, and the tradition of sonnet writing started in Italy. It was Fra Guiton di Arezzo and Petrarch. And this short subjective poem has very specific features. For example, it was a poem of 14 lines. These 14 lines were divided into 8 and the 6th line. 8th line, that was called octave, and the rest of the 6 lines, they were called sestate. The purpose of this division was to present two antithetical point of views of a single idea. And thereafter, they have a very specific rhyming scheme known as ABBA, ABBA. In the sestate, rhyming scheme was CDE, CDE, or slightly variations were introduced later on. And the theme was love. But in England, exactly, it was wit and study before Shakespeare. This kind of poetry, sonnet, was introduced, and structural design was entirely changed by wit and study. That was having no octave, no sestate. 14 lines were there, but they introduced 3 quatrains, means each quatrain consisting a stanza of 4 lines, 4 into 3, 12 lines, and the last one, that was 2 lines, they were used as concluding couplet. Means there was no division of octave and sestive, and there was no antithetical point of views presented in octave and sestive. Rather, there was a continuous evolution of thought from the very first quatrain up to the concluding couplet. That means 3 quatrains, a concluding couplet. There are 4 stages are there to develop a thought. First, that was in the form of proposition, then elaboration, thereafter in the third, exemplification. The fourth one was conclusion or summing up the whole. Even the rhyming scheme that was changed. It was not ABBA, rather ABAB, CDCD, EFEF, GG. What I'm trying to say is Shakespeare borrowed the structural design that was introduced by Witten studies. Shakespeare was not an innovator of this structural design, but he freely used, and later the critics called it Shakespearean. Now the question is, well, Shakespeare has so freely borrowed the plots, the characters, narrative design for the play text, as well as the structure of the sonnets, rhyming scheme and all, whether he should be called a plagiarist. That question is very crucial and debatable also. Now, I say no, he was neither a plagiarist nor even he indulged into an unintentional plagiarism, because he used widely known facts from the myths, legends, history, or popular events. They were free from any kind of copyright or the patenting or the intellectual property. Number 2, sources already in public domain. He used established theories, and he also knew very well what he has borrowed and what he is going to create out of the borrowing. And he never claimed originality or ownership. All his borrowings were like dry bones, but he infused life with a touch of imagination, creating something new like a compound. It is not like a chemical mixture or mechanical mixture, but like a compound. Means out of the borrowed material, he created something new and original, though he never claimed for originality and all these. Both the plays and the sonnets are full of Shakespearean sensibility. That is the most important contribution of Shakespeare. That's why he, in the modern sense, is not called, the plagiarist. Though his own playdacks, they have been pirated and sold in the market at his own time. And the pirate editions, they were called the bad quartos, and good editions, they were called the good quartos. Next point is plagiarism, academic dishonesty or crime. Whether it is a dishonesty, whether it is merely an ethical or academic issue, or it is a serious crime or the offense. Briefly, first, the origin of the term plagiarism. This word plagiarism that originated from the Latin word plagiarias, that literally means kidnapping. To plagiarize means to commit literary theft and to present as new and original an idea or the product derived from an existing source. This is given by Merriam-Webster's College Dictionary. Plagiarism involves particularly two kinds of wrongs. First is when we use another person's ideas, information, expressions, writings without citing or acknowledging or credit that person's works, that constitutes intellectual theft. Second is, first we just make a literary theft. Thereafter, we just disseminate or passing off another person's ideas, information, or expressions as your own, means claiming ownership to get better grade or gain some other advantages constitutes fraud. Plagiarism is sometimes moral and ethical, and this is very important as it happens in the case of literature, because the classical literature that is free from any kind of copyright or intellectual property, that's why it is more a moral and ethical offense rather than legal ones. There's some instances of plagiarism fall outside the scope of copyright, infringement, and the legal offense. Second, once plagiarism is detected, plagiarism in a work provokes skepticism, means the doubt and even outrage among readers whose trust in the author, the research is broken, which is very important feature of academic honesty that in the very first slide I have discussed briefly. And it also proves that the plagiarists are very incapable of developing or expressing their own thoughts or investigating or making a kind of exploration in the area that he or she has selected. They are trying to deceive others for their personal interest. And plagiarism can be detected either it is applying to the licensed items or unlicensed products. For example, folk tales, folk narratives. Here we have the tribal area and we have the tribal literature in the form of folk songs, folk literature, folk tales, folk dances, group dances, and all. They are in the oral forms, and nobody can claim the ownership of that. But some of the researchers, they may claim, because all these are free from any kind of licensing or patenting issues. That's why plagiarism is more an ethical rather than a legal issue. Kinds of plagiarism. There are three kinds of plagiarism. Intentional plagiarism, that we deliberately, out of our personal interest, when we don't have the capability to carry out research work, we have no interest, we are very much involved into cut and paste culture, obviously then we will go for the very first kind of plagiarism, that is intentional plagiarism, which is a very serious fraud and offense. Second is unintentional or accidental plagiarism. Sometimes young researchers, they don't have the mature experience about conducting research work. They are not knowing about the standard formats, the procedure for documentation, or the research procedure. Out of these, young research scholars, they go into unintentional kind of plagiarism. It is because of failing to document or cite properly. They are unfamiliar with the standard styles of documentation. There are two very important styles, MLA as well as APA. And they go on quoting excessively and failing to present your own argument. Because in the research, our argument, our original point of view, that should be the focal point. Secondary sources, or the material that we collect out of different sources, that should be used just to endorse your own argument. That should not be very much overwhelming or camouflaging your own point of view and you forget what is your original argument. Lack of note-taking skills. This is also very important in the initial research because note-taking skill is very important. Students have to move to the library and they have to collect the, relevant information about the topic that they have selected. No skill to use ideas of the others, and careless paraphrasing. Paraphrasing exactly is a restatement of what has been said by an author. In paraphrasing, the most important thing is we should not repeat the original words or the sentence structure, rather we must frame new sentences. But because English language that is very much used in research in most of the subjects, and that is second language in India, and our researchers are very much scared of English, they just go copy and paste original language, original words, original structure of the sentence, then they indulge into accidental plagiarism. Third is self-plagiarism. Now, this is a very debatable issue, and the recent notification from UGC has very clearly declared that self-plagiarism or using our own publication the next time, either with proper citing or without citing, is a crime. Otherwise, there's a question of the copyright. We have the copyright, but we cannot use the same text, same work, same research work, or the thesis, the dissertation of the book, and to present it as a new one. That exactly is a very an act of self-plagiarism. Now, next point is what to cite or credit and what not to cite. The quotations means the original words, original statements, original findings, the original ideas, original statements, all they should be quoted, or all they should be quoted, as well as they should be referred in properly with the complete details of the publication, title, books, author's name, page numbers and all. Second is paraphrases. Paraphrase exactly is a restatement of the original. In paraphrase exactly, the original lines, original words of the author, this should be transformed into our own statements, and this should also be properly cited. And the summaries, as well as the ideas and the reasoning, fresh analysis, fresh interpretations, inferences, conclusions, and the theories that we are quoting, we are using in our research work, this should be properly credited and acknowledged. Another point is what not to cite. Common knowledge. I have already given the example of William Shakespeare, and in the myths, the legends, and the history, there were certain stories, certain facts about the myths. They were widely known, and they were having in the minds of the people in the ancient time, in the modern time, the contemporary also. That's why whenever we have the common knowledge or widely known facts, the established theories, or certain facts which are very much accustomed to or familiar with the readers, no need to cite them. Why to cite? Why it is important? All the sources that we use in our research, this should be properly credited or acknowledged. While writing a project or the thesis or the dissertation, it's because it allows our instructor, the advisor, supervisor, the teacher, the mentor to check your work, whether it is a product of your honest and the sincere work, or simply you are copying and pasting it, or you are indulging into kind of plagiarism, or see which sources of information you have used. All kinds of sources. You are free to use all kinds of sources, whether it is from the print work, the printed books, or the e-books, web materials, or the multimedia materials, but you have to acknowledge them properly. Ensure you haven't just made up of the information. Collection of the information that may be quite important in the initial stage. Later on, when we indulge into serious kind of research work, then the stage comes when we have to moderate the facts. The amalgamation, the collection of the facts, too much facts, definitely sometimes confuses the young researchers. That's why we have to go for moderation, inclusion and exclusion. We include in our diary, in our initial preparation, only those facts which are relevant to our topic, and we cut down which are not relevant to our research work. That's why we have to see whether this is merely a collection of the information or the data or the facts. This also allows referees, reviewers, examiners to verify the content that you have submitted. It also helps to overcome the problem of unintentional plagiarism. That's why we have to develop to code the sources properly. Now, next is what kind of sources you must credit. For the print, in which we have the books and the articles, taken the electronic versions, e-journal articles, web materials, even on which are on the free web pages. But we must note down the date of access. That is useful because our online material goes on modifying. Whenever a new researcher comes and tries to consult your research work, and you have given the complete URL, and later on when we access the same URL and we find that that data is now deleted or modified, now the question, the doubt may be raised. That's why the date of access, if you note down, that will be very useful. You can claim that on that particular date, the data was available and I have used the data for my research work, and I have acknowledged under references or working bibliography. Even the social sites, we can use the material that is available on the social sites. Now, when we have the outbreak of COVID-19, now the social sites, their role has become very crucial. Even most of the interactions, literary interactions, intellectual interactions are going on the social platforms and sites. They can also be used. And the broadcast, whether it is a TV broadcast or the radio broadcast, and their important talks, valuable comments, they can also be used with proper citation. Even the verbal lectures, presentations, the interviews that we see, we witness, we register ourselves and participate in the seminar, conferences, webinars, and certain important interviews also. If we see that in these lectures, presentations, or the interviews, some very important information is let loose, we can use that for our research work. But the most important thing is we must credit, we must acknowledge all the sources in our references. Now, the most important question is how to avoid plagiarism. Plagiarism is a very serious crime right now. It is not merely an ethical or the moral question or the issue. It has now been declared a crime, and there are the penalties. And even the UGC is very much serious about this. That's why we have the UGC notification regulation of 2018, which talks in detail about how to avoid plagiarism, how to check it, what kind of penalties UGC has imposed. Certain committees at department level, institutional level, they have been directed to be formed immediately to avoid plagiarism. Now, these are the very general principles to avoid plagiarism. First is be honest. In your academics, in your research, in your investigation, in your exploration, in your documentation and communication, you have to be very honest and sincere. Number two, we have to understand what is plagiarism. What is the meaning of plagiarism? What is intentional plagiarism? What is unintentional plagiarism? What is self-plagiarism? Then only we can avoid, we can see the technical problems which are involving in our research work, which may lead to unintentional or accidental plagiarism, and how to detect and avoid such type of plagiarism. Next is the close study and strict adherence to AP and MLA style sheets for writing thesis, dissertation, research paper, or the research and results reporting, because these are two very important standard formats which have been given by APA as well as MLA style sheets. We have to very much strictly follow and very strictly adopt in our research and documentation also, because that talks primarily about the documentation procedure. close understanding of the subject. We must have a very close and very clear about the subject. Unless we are very clear minded subject. First stage that comes in the process of research, that is formulating a research problem. We just go through the pros and cons of the subject, the limitations of the subject, the material that is available on the subject, as well as the time, the involvement of hours, the money also, and the time limit also. There are multiple issues are there when we just go to understand the subject, and we choose a topic, we choose a problem that we have to resolve through our research work. That's why we have a very close understanding of the topic or the subject of problem. We must also know the resources that are at our disposal. We must understand, for example, here in Amarkantak, it is located at a very remote location. We have the library, but we have the limited books for the researchers. How we can go for the fields, particularly the girls, how they can go to the fields for research work, the tribal area where there are no hotels, proper accommodation, transportation facilities, all these limitations we have to take care of. And we have to acknowledge the author of the original work we have used. This is very important because acknowledgement, giving due credit or just acknowledging them is very important, because that is the primary source for you. If you are using the ideas and the thoughts of the author that is related to your subject, definitely we must acknowledge that. This shows the honesty of ours. We have to credit or cite all the sources you have used from any medium, whether it is multimedia, whether it is e-content, whether it is a print version, other lectures, the interviews, or the or any other books, any kind of source that we are using, that must be given due acknowledgement in your research work. Understand what does not need to be cited. If there are certain issues, for example, the widely known facts, certain theory which are established in the society, readers know them very well. No need to quote them. For example, Newton's theory of gravitation. No need to quote Newton and Newton's theory, page number and all. Simply, we have to understand what to cite and what not to cite. That has already been discussed in the previous slide. And put your research under open access for more visibility, so that you can also understand the comments will come and the little reactions will come. What are the infirmities, the weaknesses which are involving in your research work? It exposed to the academia, to the scholars, they will make certain comments about that. That's why your research must be put under open access. Now, this is one very important stage when young scholars go for research work. They start for research work, preparing research diary or note-taking system. Because research exactly is a fusion of our original idea or the ideas or the arguments and the ideas of others. We have the primary sources, we have the secondary sources, we have the original thought, we have the original argument, and how to endorse, how to verify what we are thinking, what is our original argument. Definitely, we try to take the help of others. What other scholars have the opinion, their comment, their line of investigation. There is one very important thing that I have adopted. There's a practical tip for the young scholars, because we have introduced in our department dissertation at UG, PG level, and in PhD also we have the course also. In UG and PG level, in the dissertation, just try to suggest the students. That's a very practical tip. Means if they are involving into thesis or the dissertation, for example, if their dissertation has 6 chapters, I ask them to make them 7 files in the system or the diary. Each chapter will be included under one file, and the 7th that will be meant for working bibliography, that will be converted later on into references or the works cited. And they will go on collecting relevant information in any format from all kinds of sources according to the chapter, and they will note down in a particular file. For example, in the first chapter, that is introduction. In the introduction, what he or she has to incorporate. She must have it clear. In the second chapter, third chapter, fourth chapter, there is a clarity of the division of chapters, and chapters exactly are the division of thought. And what kind of thought, what kind of ideas, what kind of information that they have to collect under each file or each chapter, they have to note down through different sources. And the seventh file, for example, that will be meant for the working bibliography. Later on, when the research will go on progressing, definitely a lot of modification, a lot of books, a lot of sources that in the initial phase that we use may be quite irrelevant. That should be cut down, and it will develop into a complete bibliography. That's why this note-taking system is quite useful, and it develops the habit of moving and going to the library, consulting books, consulting research journals, the magazines, as well as online sources, databases, and collect them. Because in research, one of the most baffling situation is we collect a lot of information, lot of data, but we cannot moderate it properly. We fail to understand which data should be incorporated under which chapter. That's why a lot of confusion is there. If you have adopted this note-taking system, definitely we will go on adding information or the data in a specific chapter, which you can. But this noting down the certain quotations, paraphrases, summaries, or certain images, certain data, certain codes, they should be followed by complete details of the source. If it is a web source, complete URL, even the date of access also, that's very important. I have already mentioned it, because online data goes on editing. Sometimes it is completely deleted. Later on, the question, the doubt may be raised from where you have borrowed this, picked up this data. That's why you must mention the complete source as well as the access also. Anti-plagiarism policies. These are some very important legal issues exactly. I have already told you that plagiarism exactly is more a moral and ethical issue, because even today there are certain kind of subjects where the content is not covered under any licensed product or copyright or the intellectual property or the patenting, and we, the researchers, are quite free to use the way they like. Anyway, we have in India certain anti-plagiarism policies are there. Recently, UGC regulation that is known as Prevention of Academic Integrity and Prevention of Plagiarism in Higher Education Institution, regulations 2018, that exactly elaborates the complete, the preamble, the objectives, the functions, and the way how to curb this practice of plagiarism and all. I just picked up here the important points which are meant for plagiarism. And this regulation applies to the students, the faculty members, the researchers, and the staff, teaching as well as even non-teaching also, of all higher education institutions in the country. Academic integrity, even in this regulation 2018, academic integrity has been defined, quote, intellectual honesty in proposing, performing, and reporting any activity which leads to the creation of intellectual property. Because the question comes, as we know very well, up to PG class, in other papers, we have the short answer and long answer questions. We are using quotations from different writers, the critics and the scholars, but there was no any question of the citing those sources, because we never claim ownership. We never say that this is my intellectual property, this is my original contribution. In UG/PG classes, in those papers, long and short answer questions, we very frequently use it. But when the question of the ownership comes, if you are writing a research paper, that is your intellectual property. If you're writing a dissertation or the MPhil or the PhD or the deleted dissertation or any kind of other research article, that is your intellectual property. That means you are the owner of that. If anybody, without your permission, without proper citing to a limited range, is using, that is a crime. That is not only the moral or the ethical issue, it is a crime. That's why it has been defined very clearly by the UGC regulation 2018. And it also recommends very, very strongly that the formation of departmental academic integrity panel that will be considered at the department level, and there is the composition of this panel where the head of the department will be the chairman, some external experts will also be inducted. At the department level, any kind of complaint regarding plagiarism comes, that it will be investigated at this level. And the second stage, that is a higher level, is institutional academic integrity panel. And vice chancellor or the nominee of the vice chancellor will be the chairperson, and external experts as well as other members, they will be inducted into this this kind of institutional panel. And purpose of this panel is to check and investigate the cases of plagiarism and just go and to investigate the appeals submitted by the department level institution. Now, the objective of this regulation is to create awareness about responsible conduct of research, means to avoid any kind of dishonesty in academic research, and to introduce, because UGC is having the mandate to maintain the high standard and quality in research also. That's why there are certain levels of plagiarism, and penalties are also imposed if we are committing, indulging into plagiarism. Level O, there is 0 level, similarities up to 10%, that is called the minor level, and there is no penalty imposed on such type of similarities. Similarities in the level 1, similarities above 10% to 40%, and researchers are instructed to submit revised script within 6 months. In level 2, where the similarities are above 40% to 60%, they are debarred from submitting a script for 1 year. There's a restriction for 1 year. And if the similarities are above 60%, and the restriction is cancelled. And certain other penalties are imposed if the faculty members are involving, just withholding the increments and all, they are there. And this regulation gives the complete and detailed clauses about that. Now, one question that we have to think seriously is why we indulge into plagiarism, why we plagiarize. Number one, we have the study pressure, unorganized research work. We feel that study because we have, even today, Indian education system has failed to inculcate the faculty of studying further. When our master's program is over, almost we think that the entire thing is over. And after some time, we forget whatever we have learned. Our system has not inculcated the faculty among the young aspirants to study further. And we take study as a burden. Apart from the study, the academia, other things are there. And out of this pressure, we think that this thing, that is your kind of research work, the dissertation, or the research article, thesis, all they must be completed anyhow. And secondly is unorganized research work. It is because of, as in the very second slide, we have mentioned that we do not have the honesty, we don't have the trust, we don't have the research planning, the entire procedure, constructing hypotheses, study design, and following the documentation procedure given by either MLA or APA. Then in this way, when unorganized research work is there, then we will go on plagiarizing. And poor study habit, that's very common to most of us. And the most serious problem is now cut and paste culture. This is the easiest way to cut. There needs to borrow a material from any source and paste it immediately. And one thing we can do, at the graduation level, when we have the quite young students who are just entering into research work, which we have adopted in our department, whatever they collect from any source, we instruct them to write in their own handwriting. At least they study and they pick up some relevant material, they note down in their own handwriting. Later on, when the instructor goes through the content, finds it is properly documented in the handwriting, later on they may go for typing a script or some other forms. We must check this cut and paste culture. The role of the instructor is very important here, just to check the students, researchers, that they should not go for this kind of practice. Another point that is creating problem is English as a second language in many countries, particularly in India. And English is a second language, and most of the standard books and the research material, the sources, they are available in English language. And that creates a big problem. The barrier, our researchers cannot access the content because of this barrier of the second language. And what they do, they go on paraphrasing in a very haphazard way. They cannot paraphrase. They cannot present a restatement of the original. Rather, they copy the original lines, original structure, original words, the idea. They do not make any kind of change, any modification. Lack of understanding seriousness of plagiarism means we are not very much concerned about plagiarism. Rather, we take it in a very cursory way. And the student, even the research scholars, they just shift their problem, this kind of plagiarism, to their supervisors. And the supervisor who is all the time engaged just to find out the technical flaws in the documentation, the presentation, even as far as the investigation and the results of the investigation or the exploration is concerned, the findings of the field study is concerned, analysis of the data is concerned, and verifying the hypothesis or testing the tools is concerned. It is entirely the problem of the supervisor. The students are not properly trained to go through all these important procedures and the tools and the techniques which are very essential. And once we understand the seriousness of the plagiarism or the entire procedure, all these technical things as well as tools and the materials of research, we can be free from plagiarism, at least to the minimal level. Next point is that also contributes in the process of plagiarism, lack of strict academic discipline. Strict academic discipline. That means we are not trained very properly, very adequately about the academic research, the procedure, the study material, the study design, constructing a hypothesis, report writing, presenting a proposal, the language, the way we have to cite, referencing style, and all these things, and the moderation procedure, and just choosing the original arguments with the arguments, the opinions, and the comments of others. And we are also motivate our students for review of literature, because that also helps whether we are whatever is our point of view is verified, whether that is very much endorsed. Careless attitude. Researchers, when they have no seriousness about the research, they have no interest, they have no passion for research, because that is a very important ingredient of research. We must have a deep interest in our research. So that's why whenever a topic or a problem is selected for research, we must give full liberty to the researchers. If we are imposing a topic, because definitely research scholar, the researcher will have no interest in that topic, but it is a supervisor who is imposing. He will not carry out research work in a very passionate way. He will become very much having no interest in that topic, in that research area. Because in the research, unless we have the interest, unless we have the passion for research, how the sincerity, how the honesty, how the trust, how the responsibility will develop. That's why jointly it should be discussed between the researcher and the instructor, and they must have a very, very common decision on what topic, understanding all the limitations, available sources, the time involved, the monetary expenses which are required. All these issues, they must be considered very seriously. Then the interest will develop. The scholar or the researcher will carry on research work in a proper way. Last is the lack of referencing skills. Since we have introduced in our university, particularly in our department at PG as well as UG level, this is dissertation work. We have introduced some very important topics which are related with the research in that procedure, the selection of the topic, the kind of topics that are related with the field study, ethnographic research, textual analysis, interpretive research, applied research, and all, and how to document referencing skills, how to document, how to quote, how to cite, and how to develop a diary that is meant for note taking. Later on, how to assimilate whatever has been collected into our investigation, into our original thought, and how our original thought as well as thought of others, they are fused together. And it helps to develop a very, very good kind of research work, because that is an academic report. Now, plagiarism testing tools. This is a very technical aspect. I have already told you that plagiarism exactly is a moral as well as a ethical issue. At the same time, it is a legal also, and we have certain tools are there which are quite helpful in testing the plagiarism. Plagiarism exactly is these tools are helpful to find out the similarity check. Council of Writing Program Administrators, Howard College Writing Programs Guide to Using Sources, Authenticate, Plagiarism.org, FlatTracker.com, Urkun, Printing, WriteCheck, Grammarly, and all these testing tools and other softwares, they have one very important limitation, that is the content of the source that is not online. It happens with the regional literatures, regional languages, which are not properly digitized. They cannot be tested because these testing tools, they just check the similarity of the database that is available online. Exclusions from plagiarism check. What are those aspects which should not come under this similarity check? All quoted work either falling under public domain or reproduced within permission or attribution. All references, bibliography, table of content, preface and acknowledgements, and all small similarities of very minor nature, and all kinds of generic terms, laws, standard symbols, and standard equations, because they are very commonly used and they are not exactly the property of one. And that's all. I think that I have covered all the important aspects related with plagiarism. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for nice presentation. और सर जितनी अच्छी इंग्लिश बोलते हैं उतनी अच्छी हिंदी भी बोलते हैं, तो आप क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हैं इवन इंग्लिश में, और अगर चाहे हिंदी में भी सर आंसर करेंगे. अगर आप हिंदी में भी क्वेश्चन पूछेंगे तो कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं है. तो अगर आपके पास प्लेगरिज्म और इससे संबंधित इश्यू में कोई क्वेश्चन हो तो आप पूछ सकते हैं.
Very good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, I just want to ask, first of all, and we have also not been properly guided in all the detailed process of the research is very much required for our students also. Sir, so will you suggest any video lecture on YouTube or anywhere for covering this, especially on the aspects of preparing research diary and note taking and further fusing?
There are certain programs in the video form, one by Dr. Arpit, who is from IIT Delhi, who is a librarian over there. Some very useful video clips are there, but not in a detailed way exactly. You can evolve the mechanism of note-taking system. For example, one is class notes, lecture notes. You can encourage your students particularly because we are all doing this kind of practice from the very early stage. You are noting down what the teacher is teaching us or dictating or explaining the topic. One way is this. Another is going to the library, going to any other source, whether the online sources, and they have to note down. I have introduced this kind of very simple and very practical and very useful technique. That is, I'll give an example. If you have your research, this has 6 chapters. You develop 7 files in your system. Each file will cover 1 chapter, and 7 that will be meant for working bibliography. Later on, that can be developed into, transformed into that is called a works cited or references, because in a APA they use references. In MLA we use works cited. That's why if they don't have any laptop or the computer, they can also use a bunch of papers. For each chapter, 20 papers, a bunch of 20 papers. And they go on noting down. If one researcher gets a material that is quite useful for example, for chapter number 3, and that bunch that is meant for chapter number 3, he will note down that material, that quotation or the paraphrase, the summary or the online material, and also note down at the same time, that should be noted down immediately, complete reference. Because later on, when we have the collection of lot of material, lot of information, we cannot recall the source that we have used earlier.
Yes, thank you very much.
Hello, sir. Sir, hello, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Sir, myself, Dr. Rakesh Prasthi, your resident, sir.
Okay.
Sir, my special and sincere thanks to organizing such a special program, and my special thanks to you, sir. Today we have learned so many things, sir. Sir, I have one question, sir.
Yeah.
If there is any presentation or there is any interview, so how to cite or how
no
to give
problem.
the proper
If you have noted
sir?
down some important comments by a plenary speaker of a seminar or the webinar,
yes, sir.
You quote the word, you quote the line. Thereafter, you say the name of the person, the plenary speaker. For example, Professor Rakesh Singh, plenary lecture.
Yes, sir.
Or the department such and such, and the date. That's okay.
Yes, sir. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, thank you so much, sir.
Exactly. MBA and the APA, they are the standard formats only. There are new issues, new formats when they will evolve in the future time. You have to evolve our formats also.
Okay, sir. Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, is there any free software for anti-plagiarism checking?
Nowadays, we are using Urkund. Most of the libraries, they have been given this task to, before submitting your thesis or dissertation, you have to obtain anti-plagiarism, that's called plagiarism check certificate from the library. Urkund or the Tintin that we are using right now worldwide. But again, I have already told you in the last slide, such type of softwares or the plagiarism checks have their own limitations. The data that is not available online, then that cannot be checked.
Okay, sir.
Sir, this is Prasenjit.
Oh, okay.
Sir,
Good evening.
sir, Sir, pranam, sir. Sir, I have a little query regarding Shakespeare.
Okay.
Sir, throughout the history, we have seen that Shakespeare actually has taken his story and his plot from several point of view and from several folks and the myths and even the Hollinshed's Chronicle. Several from the several culture he has taken those sources, but he has put his originality and makes it own. And after that, throughout the English history, if you see that since the ages comes, all the scholars, they have taken their predecessors and they made their own. And till T.S. Eliot, even the tradition and individual talent, he was also telling that the tradition is there, but we have to put our individuality. So in this way, throughout the English literature, we may call it that they are all plagiarizing, they are all taking, they are all stealing the others.
That's why deliberately I have presented a slide on Shakespeare. That was very typical, a very strange case.
Exactly, sir.
Though he borrowed from different sources, either the myths, the legend, the history, contemporary events, very freely, without any hesitation. But he never claimed originality of the plot, originality of the technique, originality of the character. But what is most important in Shakespeare is Shakespearean sensibility. It is the way that he treats the subject. It's not important for him whether he has borrowed it from Historia Danica or Saxo Grammaticus for Hamlet, or the contemporary events, that is the shipwrecking of Virginia Company's fleet in 1611, and he developed the Tempest. That was merely a springboard for William Shakespeare, and he goes into a world of imagination. And that is most important in Shakespeare, the way he treats the subject. And here is the originality of Shakespeare. His sensibility is always visible. We feel that, oh, it is Shakespearean. Otherwise, the subject in Shakespeare is not important. As we are the students of literature, we know the fact is not so important as the fictional presentation of the fact, artistic presentation of the fact. That's more important thing. And
yeah, exactly, sir.
And he never claimed that this is invented by me. He was not an innovator. Rather, he was a great experimenter.
Yeah, exactly, sir. That's what we call him, experimental. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
विद्यासागर जी, आप अपना क्वेश्चन पूछ सकते हैं, डॉक्टर विद्यासागर।
I have a query. Concepts to change.
You can later on claim that this material was available in a specific website and I have used it. Now, what is the status of that material, whether it is available, whether it has been modified, whether it has been deleted, that is not your concern.
Okay. And in presentation, suppose we are making any presentation for video lecture or audio lecture, in that case also we should go about, through that, or we can use the concept.
No, the concept, if it is widely accepted concept,
Yes.
already in one of the slides, there was one aspect, what not to cite. There are certain facts, there are widely accepted concept, the theories are there. And if you are quoting them, you are using them, no referencing is required.
Okay, that's what I was.
But you should not claim that this is mine.
Yes, yes. So general concepts which are available, we can use them for presentation at least. In research work, I agree, we have to go for proper referencing. But if we are making any type of presentation for video or audio lecture, then we can use generalized concepts. Will that not come in plagiarism? That's what I was.
It is for a limited academic purpose exactly. Here, for example, I have presented this slide. I also use the slides of many scholars, many reviewers, and books of MLA, as well as certain words I picked up from AP or Science. But I'm not claiming that this is mine. This is for a limited academic purpose only.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
सर, इस बहुत बढ़िया लेक्चर के लिए और बहुत सारे क्वेश्चंस को आंसर करने के लिए आपका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
थैंक यू।
अभी तक हम लोग जनरल बातचीत करते थे आपसे, लेकिन पहली बार सर
I thank all the scholars because they have been
टीम की तरफ से और सारे पार्टिसिपेंट की तरफ से
thank you. I
सारे पार्टिसिपेंट की तरफ से बहुत धन्यवाद।
They were very active and they were very vigilant. That's why they have asked questions. Certain doubts are there when we are very much sincere in our participation. Then you have asked the questions. That was the kind of your involvement in the presentation. Thank you. I also thank Professor Rakesh Singh, once again the director of this program, and his entire team, Dr. Krishna Kumar Singh, Dr. Lalit Mishra, and Dr. Devin Kumar Singh, that they have organized such a very useful and quite relevant program for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.